Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most complex geopolitical topics of the modern era, the major military conflicts involving Israel from its founding to the present day. This is a timeline overview covering the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, the Six-Day War of 1967, the Yom Kippur War of 1973, the Lebanon conflicts, and the Gaza operations. We'll be looking at the facts, the context, and the lasting impacts of each conflict. Before we begin, a quick note. This is a historical overview focused on facts and timelines. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict involves deeply held beliefs on all sides, and this video aims to educate, not to advocate for any particular position. Let's get started. Our story begins in 1947. After World War II and the Holocaust, the United Nations proposed dividing British-controlled Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international control. The Jewish community accepted this partition plan. The Arab states and Palestinian Arab leadership rejected it. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence. The very next day, 5 Arab nations invaded: Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. This became known as the War of Independence in Israel and as the Nakba, or catastrophe, by Palestinians. The war lasted until 1949, with several ceasefires and armistice agreements. When it ended, Israel controlled more territory than the UN partition plan had allocated. Jordan occupied the West Bank and East Jerusalem, while Egypt controlled the Gaza Strip. The human cost was severe on all sides. Approximately 6,000 Israelis died, about 1% of the population. Arab casualties are estimated between 10,000 and 15,000 fighters and civilians. Between 700,000 and 750,000 Palestinian Arabs became refugees, fleeing or being expelled from areas that became part of Israel. This displacement created a refugee crisis that remains unresolved today. Meanwhile, approximately 850,000 Jewish refugees fled or were expelled from Arab countries between 1948 and the 1970s, with most resettling in Israel. The 1949 armistice lines, often called the Green Line, would define the borders until 1967. Fast forward to 1967. Tensions had been building for years, with frequent border skirmishes, Palestinian Fedayeen attacks from Egypt and Jordan, and Syrian shelling of Israeli settlements from the Golan Heights. In May 1967, Egypt's President Nasser ordered UN peacekeeping forces out of the Sinai Peninsula, blockaded the Straits of Tiran to Israeli shipping, and moved troops to Israel's border. Jordan and Syria formed a military alliance with Egypt. Israel viewed the blockade as an act of war and the military buildup as an existential threat. On June 5, 1967, Israel launched a preemptive strike. The Israeli Air Force destroyed most of Egypt's air force on the ground within hours. This air superiority proved decisive. In just 6 days, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula and Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, the Golan Heights from Syria. Jordan's King Hussein had been warned by Israel to stay out of the conflict, but he felt obligated by his alliance with Egypt and opened a second front. This decision cost Jordan control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, including the Old City and its holy sites. The war fundamentally changed the map of the Middle East. Israel now controlled territories nearly 4 times its original size. The capture of East Jerusalem, including the Western Wall, had profound religious and emotional significance for Israelis. For Palestinians, the war displaced another 300,000 people and placed the West Bank and Gaza under Israeli military occupation, a situation that continues in various forms today. The UN Security Council passed Resolution 242, calling for Israeli withdrawal from territories occupied in the war, in exchange for peace and secure borders. The interpretation and implementation of this resolution remains disputed to this day. On October 6, 1973, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria launched a coordinated surprise attack on Israel. Egyptian forces crossed the Suez Canal while Syrian forces attacked the Golan Heights. The timing was strategic. Most of Israel was fasting and at synagogue. Military readiness was low, and Israeli intelligence had failed to predict the attack despite warning signs. The war had two phases. Phase 1, Egypt and Syria made significant initial gains. Egypt overran Israeli positions in Sinai, while Syria nearly broke through on the Golan Heights. Phase 2. After absorbing heavy casualties, Israel mobilized reserves and counterattacked. Israeli forces pushed into Syria, advancing to within artillery range of Damascus. In the south, Israeli forces crossed the Suez Canal, encircling Egypt's Third Army. The superpowers got involved. The Soviet Union supplied Arab forces, while the United States airlifted supplies to Israel. At one point, tensions between the US and USSR reached dangerous levels. A UN-brokered ceasefire ended the fighting after 3 weeks. Casualties were severe. Israel lost about 2,600 soldiers, Egypt around 8,000 to 10,000, and Syria approximately 3,500. Though Israel ultimately repelled the invasion, the war shattered the perception of Israeli invincibility. The surprise attack led to major inquiries and the eventual resignation of Prime Minister Golda Meir. However, the war also set the stage for peace. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat's willingness to negotiate would lead to his historic visit to Jerusalem in 1977 and the Camp David Accords in 1978. In 1979, Egypt became the first Arab nation to recognize Israel, and Israel returned the Sinai Peninsula. Lebanon is complicated. After being expelled from Jordan in 1970, the PLO established a strong presence in southern Lebanon, using it as a base for attacks into northern Israel. In 1982, following the attempted assassination of Israel's ambassador to the UK, Israel launched Operation Peace for Galilee, invading Lebanon with the goals of destroying PLO infrastructure and creating a security buffer zone. The invasion reached Beirut, and Israel became entangled in Lebanon's civil war. The PLO leadership eventually evacuated to Tunisia under international agreement. The war is remembered for several controversial incidents, including the Sabra and Shatila massacre, where Lebanese Christian militiamen killed Palestinian refugees while the area was under Israeli control. An Israeli commission found Israel indirectly responsible for not preventing the massacre. Israel occupied southern Lebanon until 2000. During this time, Hezbollah, a Shiite militant group backed by Iran and Syria, emerged as a major force, conducting guerrilla warfare against Israeli forces. The occupation was costly for Israel, with regular casualties from Hezbollah attacks. Many Israelis called it Israel's Vietnam. In 2000, Prime Minister Ehud Barak withdrew Israeli forces unilaterally from Lebanon. In July 2006, Hezbollah crossed the border, killed Israeli soldiers, and kidnapped 2 others. Israel responded with a major military operation, including an extensive aerial bombing campaign and a ground invasion of southern Lebanon. The war lasted 34 days. Hezbollah fired thousands of rockets into northern Israel, forcing hundreds of thousands of Israelis into shelters. Israeli airstrikes damaged Lebanese infrastructure heavily. The war ended with UN Security Council Resolution 1701, calling for a ceasefire, Hezbollah's withdrawal from the border area, and deployment of Lebanese army and UN peacekeepers. The implementation of the resolution has been partial at best. Casualties included approximately 120 Israeli soldiers, 44 Israeli civilians, about 500 Hezbollah fighters, and roughly 1,000 Lebanese civilians. To understand the Gaza conflicts, we need to go back to 2005. Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon ordered a unilateral withdrawal from Gaza, removing all Israeli settlements and military presence. In 2006, Hamas, designated as a terrorist organization by many Western countries, won Palestinian legislative elections. In 2007, Hamas violently took control of Gaza from the Palestinian Authority, which retained control of the West Bank. Israel and Egypt then imposed a blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns. Israel maintained that the blockade was necessary to prevent Hamas from importing weapons, while critics argued it amounted to collective punishment of Gaza's population. In December 2008, after repeated rocket fire from Gaza into southern Israel, Israel launched Operation Cast Lead. The operation lasted 3 weeks, involving airstrikes and a ground invasion. The operation was controversial, with disputed casualty figures. Israel reported killing mostly combatants, while Palestinian sources and human rights organizations reported high civilian casualties. A UN inquiry led by Judge Richard Goldstone initially accused both sides of war crimes, though Goldstone later retracted some criticisms of Israel. Following continued rocket fire, Israel launched an 8-day operation in November 2012, primarily using airstrikes. The operation began with the targeted killing of Ahmed Jabari, Hamas's military chief. Hamas and other groups fired over 1,500 rockets at Israel, while Israel conducted over 1,500 airstrikes. Egypt brokered a ceasefire. The summer of 2014 saw the longest and deadliest Gaza conflict. It began after the kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers in the West Bank, followed by the revenge killing of a Palestinian teenager. Hamas launched rockets at Israeli cities, including Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Israel responded with airstrikes and then a ground invasion aimed at destroying Hamas's tunnel network that extended into Israeli territory. The 51-day war resulted in approximately 72 Israelis killed, including 66 soldiers. Palestinian casualties were much higher, with estimates of over 2,100 killed, though the ratio of combatants to civilians is disputed. In May 2021, tensions over evictions in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem and clashes at Al-Aqsa Mosque led to another conflict. Hamas fired thousands of rockets at Israeli cities, and Israel responded with airstrikes on Gaza. The fighting lasted 11 days, with approximately 260 Palestinians and 13 Israelis killed. On October 7, 2023, Hamas launched a major attack from Gaza into southern Israel, killing approximately 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and taking over 240 hostages. This attack was the deadliest single day for Jews since the Holocaust. Israel's subsequent military response in Gaza has been extensive and ongoing, with significant casualties and humanitarian concerns. Given the recency and evolving nature of this conflict, I'll let you research the latest developments yourself. So there you have it, a timeline of the major Israeli conflicts from 1948 to the present day. These wars have shaped not just Israel and its neighbors, but global politics and the lives of millions of people. What are your thoughts on these conflicts? Have you learned something new today? Let me know in the comments below, but please keep discussions respectful. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.